Back into Y'all Talk with a Southern accent with your host, Jon Rawl. And here in the South, as we have 16 states that encompass Y'all country, we have a variety of people that have found themselves to this part of the country, whether they be American Indians or the Caucasians that settled, the slaves that came here. And we also have a proud history of Asians who've found their way into the Southeast. And that's been going on a long time. And here we're going to take some time to talk about the Asian American community in the country, but specifically we'll talk about what's going on in the South, and we'll talk about some of the modern challenges the Americans of Asian ancestry are having to deal with here. There's a case before the Supreme Court right now, and the guy that knows more about that case than just about anybody, Kenny Hsu, is on right now to talk about his new book, An Inconvenient Minority, and Kenny is on to talk about that and more. Welcome into the Y'all Show, Kenny.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the South. I went to Davidson College in North Carolina, it's definitely a home.
It is, but Kenny, I got to pick on you. I've been researching you before your arrival here on today's show, and you're what we call in the South a little bit of a foreigner. That's because you're from New Jersey.
Oh, that's basically a foreign country.
It is. It is a foreign country. But you did say you were a Davidson Wildcat, and I also, in my research of you, I've got to give you mad props. You said you like country music.
Wow. You did some deep dive research on me, Jon.
That's my job here. And you've been doing a deep dive research into a lot more than talking about the South. But thank you for coming on. And we're going to talk about this new book that you've got. It's not quite out yet, but you can pre-order it. I'm going to show the cover in just a second. But congratulations on the first read that you've been able to do, and the fact that you're a fairly young guy. So how was it getting into the writing world after those days in Davidson, North Carolina?
I started writing An Inconvenient Minority while I was still at Davidson. But talking about elite universities, college, the college experience in Asian Americans, and meritocracy. This when I was in college and everything like that, I saw before my eyes how minorities were viewed in the racial prism, and how Asian minorities were viewed, especially. And now people are saying Asian Americans are white adjacent, or basically white people. Why do they say that? They don't say that because it's a compliment. They say that to disparage us, to basically say that we come from some kind of privilege, like white people, according to them. And this enables them to discriminate against Asian Americans. It's what Harvard University does, Yale, Princeton, a lot of elite universities. Now there's a suit from UNC Chapel Hill. Same deal, discrimination against Asian Americans. And that's because they view Asian Americans in this way.
And who are the people doing this primarily?
Well, the lawsuit against Harvard for discriminating against Asian Americans is filed by a group of Asian American applicants called Students for Fair Admissions. And I've had the honor to cover this case for 4 or 5 years, and all of the questions that it raises, like, well, we do want to give minorities a leg up, but what happens when we give Black and Hispanic minorities a leg up at the expense of qualified Asians? But that's exactly what happens at Harvard. Asians have to score 440 points higher on the SAT to have the same chance of admission as a Black person to Harvard University. And that's just what happens. It's the reality of the way it is right now.
Is it primarily, I'm going to just say it, Black and brown people that are the ones that are protecting and trying to diminish Asian numbers to increase Black and brown numbers?
They're doing it to protect their system, their whole system.
Okay.
And the system is a system that actually rewards very privileged white people, legacy applicants, children of donors, those kinds of things. And of course, Asian Americans are some of the biggest competitors to to that segment of society because they are able to get such high SAT scores and achieve academically so well.
Kenny Shue is our guest here on the Y'all Show. He is making the media rounds. You might have seen him recently on Fox News and other national outlets, and he's on today on this regional outlet we call the Y'all Show and y'all.com. And this Davidson alum has spent time in the South and loves the South, as he said. We've got him on record, so we're going to hold him to it. But this book is out, and it's very timely because right now before the Supreme Court, they're looking at this Harvard case, and you mentioned other schools that have similar discrimination-type cases before them. When do you expect the Supreme Court to come down with a ruling?
Probably next year.
Next year.
Probably
okay.
next year. Yeah.
All right.
And this book touches on a lot of other things besides just Ivy League admissions, because we all know that's important, but for the majority of Americans, that's not what's at stake. What's at stake is how we treat each other. Are we going to treat each other on the basis of our race, or are we going to treat each other on the basis of our merit? If I hire a plumber, I want the best plumber. If I hire a surgeon, I want the best surgeon. I don't care what race they are. Unfortunately, in our elite culture today, it's becoming increasingly important to be a certain race rather than to be the most qualified.
Mm-hmm. Kenny, want to thank you again for coming on, and we were going to talk about the book and some of the aspects of it, but you are a guy who went to Davidson, North Carolina, to Davidson College to go to college. Did you try to get into an Ivy League school?
I did. I tried to get into Princeton.
Which is your hometown.
It was my hometown. Maybe that was a factor against me. Who knows? But I didn't get in.
Did they give you a reason?
No, Ivy League colleges never give you a reason.
I see.
They'll never give you a reason. Now, you can force them to give you a reason if you actually request your admissions documents. Sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't, but you can try.
Well, Princeton's loss was Davidson's gain, and I think it worked out pretty well for you. Davidson, a very, very respected college in the South and throughout the country. I'm a little bitter, though, they left the Southern Conference for greater basketball success. But other than that, yeah, it's a great school, the Wildcats. You're the guy that made Davidson famous, not some basketball player named Seth. But Kenny, in the book, you said you talk about more than just the Ivy League cases. What else do you throw in there that is maybe something a bit of a eye-opener for those of us who aren't Asian Americans?
I think you need to see the way Asian Americans, work hard and really achieve the American dream for themselves. They come out of poverty. They come, a lot of them come with no money into this country, and they show that with hard work and experience, they're able to achieve. And they become some of their most productive members in American society. Your doctor is likely to be Asian American. The engineers in your building sometimes, in the tech industry and everything like that. I think it's an amazing success story. And there's no reason that we should be trying to attack people's talent just because they're talented.
That's right. And one of the things, your book I think covers it, but I've seen either on your website, which is well worth visiting, it's inconvenientminority.com, is the fact that Asians on average work an extra 20 hours more than their white and black counterparts.
Mm-hmm. They study, and they study twice as many hours.
Do they really?
As the average American as well. Yeah, this is backed by research. When I was growing up, I was always encouraged to study. But of course, my parents were a little different because we know that studying is not going to get you everywhere. It's not just academic excellence in America. Being academically excellent is a good thing by all means, but you need to have a level of acumen that is not just academically oriented. So that's something I think Asian Americans still need to work on, and that's actually something I touch in my book, An Inconvenient Minority.
And your book and your website also stands out because on the political spectrum, Kenny Shue, you fall into the conservative corner, which, again, we don't hear or see all that many Asian Americans who are proudly in that corner.
Well, the Asian Americans have conservative values. I mean, we love family. We respect education. We respect academics. We want to work hard. And we believe in that. And also, we don't believe that everybody should be given the same thing, especially those who work less. You don't want somebody who works a third as much as you to be promoted over you. And so I think Asian Americans are inherently conservative, but sometimes you have identity politics. Say, you Asian Americans, you're a victim, vote for Democrats, become liberal, and so sometimes they'll vote the other way. But I think Asian Americans are inherently conservative.
All right, very well put there. And let's talk about Asian Americans in this part of the world, the 16 states of the American South. There are sizable communities in places like Atlanta and Dallas and Houston, maybe not as much in some of the other states of the South. This is old numbers. I don't have the latest census numbers, but nearly 100,000 Asians were in Alabama, for example, in the 2010 census. When you look at a state like Florida, more than 500,000 Asian Americans identified in that state. And I'll even brag on Mississippi. Do you know much about the Asian American community in the state of Mississippi?
I'll be honest with you, I have no idea.
Well, I don't know what was going on in the world, but more than 100 years ago, a sizable number of Chinese immigrated into the Mississippi Delta. And you find a sizable population of Chinese immigrants who have been there 100 years, and so their names are Bubba and other common Anglo names, and they have been very successful in that portion of the state of Mississippi. But basically, Kenny, they're Chinese American rednecks, and I'm okay with that.
I love it. I love country music too. I told you, I'm not lying about that. I went to a Luke Bryan concert and 2 Zach Brown concerts.
That's not country, Kenny. You're fired. Now, Luke Combs, that's okay. Yeah. So you said you saw Luke Bryan. How was that?
Everyone was drunk.
All right. And that was recently?
It was 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. I was about to say kudos on whoever you were to have a Luke Bryan concert as everything's kind of lifting, thankfully, here. But yeah, we've got a few. We're of course not as many Asian Americans living in the South compared to the West Coast, but they're scattered in an important part of the country. In fact, I guess we could even claim, or Asians can claim, the current Vice President of the United States has Asian ancestry.
Yeah, but see, this also raises the issue, right? This also raises the issue because when Kamala Harris ran for president, she positioned herself as black. She didn't position herself as Asian American. And of course, because she has no ties to Asian Americans. And so this is just another example of you shouldn't let your race tell your own story for you. This is what elite culture in Harvard is doing. It's when they see your race and they see that you're Asian American, or they see that you're black, or they see you're Hispanic, doesn't matter if they're doing it in your favor. They're still stereotyping you. They're still telling a story about you that you may or may not identify with. Give me 1 second. 1 second.
Sure. All right. We're talking again to Kenny Shue here on the Y'all Show, and he is a journalist and the author of the new book, An Inconvenient Minority, The Attack on Asian American, and that is out right or coming out soon. If you have a chance to get a copy, advanced copy, do that. It's out in July. Also, Kenny, you are president of Color Us United. Explain what that is.
Color Us United is a new organization that's dedicated to advocating for a race-blind society. Now, some people say, what does it mean to be race-blind? Race-blind means we treat other people, no matter what their race, equally. We look past their color. We try to get to know their actual story, right? And so many times in our culture today, you are fed a narrative where if you look at somebody's race, you're assuming something about them. Either that they're privileged, they're oppressed, they do math, they like music, they're poor. And a lot of these racial narratives are for political gain. And so we advocate against that. We say, hey, we don't want people to be treated or to be looked at even as a different race, which makes them different. That's why we started the petition at colorusunited.org to hold our media and our government accountable, and we will be campaigning for policies that promote race blindness in our culture.
Very good effort there, Kenny Shue. Wrapping up with you. Again, a guy who's spent time here in the South in North Carolina, lives in Washington, D.C. now, and his effort to explain what's going on with the courts right now, looking at cases like the Harvard case of where there's a discrimination claim that they were not necessarily giving Asian Americans a fair shot of being accepted because they were weighting other minorities more than Asians. And that case, as Kenny said, likely to be solved and a verdict in 2022. We're on the edge of our seat right now. Kenny, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're a Luke Bryan fan, but we won't hold that against you. Well, by the way, your favorite Luke Bryan song?
Roller Coaster.
You like Roller Coaster? Okay.
I love it.
Thank you. Well, your book is not a roller coaster ride. It's a great book. Everybody check it out. Whether you're American of Asian ancestry or anything, it's a very timely, informative book. And looking forward to book number 2. What you got planned for that?
Oh, man. Let's see how book number 1 turns out.
I figured you already had it done. That's how most of these writers are.
I know.
Yeah. Kenny, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations on getting that Davidson degree and getting that book out.
I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Kenny, everybody, thank you very much. All right, more of the Y'all shows coming up, so stay tuned to the show that covers all y'all, including our great Asian Americans with a Southern drawl. We'll be right back.